Welcome, and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Monday, December 6, 2021, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And what do we have on the docket today? Part 5 of the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Masters Guide section on Artifacts and Relics. We've gone over a lot of the other stuff. That is to say, we've had a look at all of the minor and major benefits and drawbacks to all of the items. We've checked out the side effects and the bonus things. And all of those, I should say, are easy to quantify individually. A lot of them are basically spells built into a magic item as far as the benefits are concerned. The rest of it is kind of like curses built into a magic item. Good morning, Sarah. Thanks for dropping in today. Good to see you. We've got about 5.5 pages of individual artifacts. Some of them are more fleshed out than others. I think we're going to take today and next Monday to knock these off, and then we're going to look at an old first edition D&D product, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons product, on our final week before the hiatus. It's a non-player character records sheet booklet that they put out for keeping track of. And in a way, it's kind of a compact player character sheet all in one on one side, squeezed all on. It's got spells and thieves abilities and everything squeezed into a single page. So if you wanted to use it as a player character sheet, you certainly could. And some people like that compact nature of it. But we'll look at that in a couple of weeks from today. That'll be the last show before the winter hiatus. That's December 20th. So we've got a show next week. The finishing up of the Artifacts and Relics section, which is a big section, as you know. I mean, 5-6 sections or 6 shows devoted to it. And then that one last show, kind of a year in review, plus looking over that NPC character sheet, record sheet. Then we'll take a break. We'll take 4 weeks. We'll come back on January 17th. And maybe we'll have some advances in technology or adjustments to the format of the show just to make it more exciting or to freshen it up. I don't know. Who knows? It's tough to say. I never know if I'm going to come up with something new while I'm on a break, because there's always that possibility. So, we will see. We will see. In any event, let's dive into this. We kind of looked over the acts of the Dwarvish Lords in a previous show when we were kind of fumbling around trying to figure out how we could tackle this section. But let's look again. Legend relates that the greatest dwarf who ever lived, the first dwarven king, forged this weapon in volcanic fires with the aid of a patron god. It passed from dwarven monarch to dwarven monarch until it was lost in the invoked devastation centuries gone. Rumors persist of the appearance of the axe from time to time in various places, but it supposedly bears a curse. The blade of the axe is equal to a sword of sharpness, and it is backed by a head equal to a +3 hammer. The handle extends or contracts upon command to equal a battle axe or hand axe for throwing, and the axe will return 30 feet to its thrower. The possessor has dwarven abilities of infravision, trap detection, etc. Double abilities if a dwarf. The possessor's lifespan is 50% longer than normal, but he or she becomes more and more dwarf-like with time, until eventually he or she exactly resembles one. The axe has the following additional powers and effects. So it gives you a chance to use all those tables that we went over the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks really, and outline what the various benefits, powers, and effects are, including side effects. So there's benign and malevolent things involved in each of these. And you could choose them. You can go down the list and say, hey, this makes sense for an Axe of the Dwarvish Lords. Or, hey, this makes sense for my campaign, because this one thing is prominent in my campaign, and it would be good if it were also tied to an artifact to sort of bring it full circle. And certainly choosing them might make things more cohesive, but randomly rolling them might make things more fun or more interesting, not just for the players, but for you as a dungeon master who already knows your setting and wants to maybe liven things up a little bit. So you have to make that call. It's certainly up to you. You'll have all the information at your fingertips with the Dungeon Master's Guide. Let's look at Baba Yaga's hut. Ages ago, the most powerful female mage ever known spent much of her power in the creation of a magical dwelling of superb character. When she passed to another plane, her hut disappeared and has only been rumored to have been seen once or twice since. Baba Yaga developed a small hut of ordinary appearance, a circular thatched structure of 15-foot diameter, 10 feet high. To this dwelling are attached 2 powerful fowl legs, 12 feet long, usually depicted as chicken legs, 12-foot long chicken legs, which appear to be stilts. Furthermore, the hut has intelligence high and human senses, plus infravision, infravisual ability to 120 feet, and ultravision. Inside the hut is a small palace, garden, fountains of water and wine, and 30 rooms on 3 floors, all lavishly and richly furnished. Despite the commodious interior, the bird legs can move Baba Yaga's hut at up to 48-foot speed. That's 4 times as fast as a normal human being. Over swamp, 36, 3 times as fast. Over rough or normal terrain, 12, same as a human. Over hills, same as a human on flat ground. Through forests, etc. The hut will obey commands from one person, the one first using a key phrase, and can come to a call from as far away as 1 league. Its legs deliver blows equal to those of a hill giant, 2 attacks per round, to any so rash as to come near without invitation or knowing the command phrase. The legs are armor class 2 and can take 48 hit points of damage each, regenerating at 1 hit point per melee round. The walls of the hut are the equivalent of 5-foot thick granite. The hut has the following additional powers and effects. Again, quite a few of them, twice as many of the first level powers as the Dwarven Lord Axe. But again, choose these, and you don't have to fill them all in. If you feel something isn't warranted or you don't want to have like upper end powers, or you don't want to have a bunch of lower end powers because this particular relic or artifact already does something important in your campaign and you don't want to dilute it by dilute might not be the wrong word, but lose focus on what its primary abilities are, then maybe that's your call. Sarah asks about this. Wait, so she's just chilling in another dimension, but her hut keeps disappearing from around her? Well, she may be chilling in another dimension and not in a hut. Or perhaps maybe she's gone to another dimension and created another hut to be used over there. Uh, you know, as DM, of course, anytime you ask a question, just remember you have the power to answer it. So if it doesn't make sense to you and you feel like it won't make sense to your players because of the reason it doesn't make sense to you, then what you need to do is come up with a reason why it would make sense to you, and hopefully that answers questions for your players too. But as far as your players are concerned, actually, there's no need to answer those questions. Let them have those questions. Let them seek out in-game people who might be able to answer those questions. And if you don't have an answer yet, don't let them find anybody. Let them have those questions and let those burn and keep their interest. I mean, there can come a point where players have so many questions about your setting and the things in it that it just defies too much logic for them, and they need some answers to help them feel comfortable and know that there's some logic to the setting, uh, or they're gonna get bored. They're gonna think this is too whimsical, too random, too impossible to fathom for us as characters or even as players. So you have to keep a gauge with your players and make sure that they have enough answers to questions that it keeps them engaged with the setting, even if they have other questions. So yeah, tricky one there. But it's it always boils down to ultimately, I guess all questions boil down to what is it that your players are really asking, or what is it that they're really implying by asking the questions they're asking. Are they suggesting that they're confused and won't follow your setting if something doesn't make sense to them? Is it impossible to ever get answers? Do they have some wherewithal within the setting to be able to get some answers? These are the things you need to corral for them, right? Let's move on to the next one. Codex of the Infinite Planes. In the distant past, the High Wizard Priest of the Isle of Way, now sunken beneath the waters of Near Dive. Remember, a lot of this takes place in Greyhawk. That's Gary's setting, and when he is pressed for a setting to use within his explanations of things, he will always use Greyhawk. See the World of Greyhawk from TSR. So the Isles of Way discovered, in the distant past, the High Priest of the Isles of Way discovered this work and used its arcane powers to dominate the neighboring states. But legend also has it that these same powers eventually brought doom to the Mage Priest and his tyrannical domain. It must be that somehow the Codex survived the inundation, for the Archmage Zunk scribed the following fragment prior to his strange disappearance. And we quote, "And the two strong slaves lifted it," the Codex, "from the back of the beast. Thereupon I commanded the brazen portals to be brought low, and they were wrenched from their hinges and rang upon the stone. The Ifrit howled in fear and fled when I caused the page to be read, and the beast passed into the city of brass. Now was I, Tsunk, master of the plain of molten skies. With sure hand I closed Yagrax's tome, the codex, dreading to ... unquote, this all you have. From the foregoing it is evident that the item is very large and of exceptional power. Any person reading its 99 damned pages is 99% certain to meet a terrible fate. 1% cumulative chance per page. The codex's other pages have the keys to instant physical transference to any one of the other planes and alternates of any world or universe. The work will destroy itself or destroy instantly any character under 11th level of experience who touches it. But those of 11th level or higher who make a saving throw versus magic can command the powers and effects of the codex. And look at all those. For first, for good, for bad of minor ability, too good and too bad of major ability, and then, of course, the side effects and the prime power. Note, when activating powers and effects, base their coming into play upon the progress of the character's perusal of the codex. Good advice. So that one's all pretty straightforward. It lets you jump around to different planes, and it has a bunch of powers that you can also use. How much information, TBC asks in the chat, how much information about your setting do you give up front? It depends on the starting level of the characters. If you're starting at first level, you certainly want to give them information of their immediate surroundings, a sense of how economics work. I mean, you know, they're not students of economics, but they understand how money is spent, how much stuff is done by barter. They should know the authority in the local area where they are starting, and they should know what their place is in the class structure of the setting within at least that locale. And they probably have some information about, what sort of authority, is the area, community, village, whatever, where they are, a microcosm of a larger country or nation, or indeed an empire. So they should have some sense of that as well, because anybody coming and going and trading in the village where they live will bring information from the outside, and they'll have some sense of their place and the village's place in the larger world. Or maybe they start off in a major city and all of this stuff is second nature to them, such that this information can be given to them with the understanding that it's rather blasé for them. Oh, the Emperor? Yeah, he's got to have another feast. Another parade for the Emperor this week. Okay. Well, I'm going to make sure I'm out in the countryside because traffic is crap. I won't be able to sell anything. Or maybe they're on a busy street where sales go up for the place that they're at, if they're working in the city at a regular day job when they're not adventuring. So there are a lot of considerations in that regard, but it's important to decide what level of play you're going to start at, how much information they need to navigate as characters or as players through their characters within the setting so that they can feel immersed in it right from the start. And make sure to set the tone in regard to what adventuring is within the game world. Is it a rare thing? Does everybody rush off and go on an adventure as soon as they have a couple of coins to rub together? So there are a lot of considerations in that regard. I prefer adventurers in my setting to be few and far between. The player characters are adventurers. Very few outside of that, NPCs, will actually be adventurers. Most of them have some sort of commitment in their life that might take them on missions or quests or whatnot, but they're usually pretty narrow in focus and pretty high of purpose. They work for some noble, and yeah, they're out seeking this thing, but they're not off on an adventure. They're doing this at the behest of someone that they work for, and that's not necessarily how the player characters are going. Sometimes they have personal motives rather than just working for someone else. Some players need a lot of more motivation, and they need to be given tasks to fulfill. So you may need to give them information so that when they get those tasks, they have the ability to fulfill them. Anyway, hope that answers the question. We'll move on to another one here. Feel free to ask follow-ups if you like. Crown of Might. According to tradition, great items of regalia were constructed for special servants of the deities of each alignment when the gods were contending among themselves. Who amongst them first conceived the idea is unknown. The champion of each ethic alignment, evil, good, neutrality, was given a crown, an orb, and a scepter. These items have been scattered and lost over the centuries of struggle since they first appeared. These three complete sets bestow great powers, but even mere possession of a crown of might gives a character of the same ethos great benefits. If a character of another alignment touches such an item, he or she takes 5 to 30 hit points of damage and must save versus magic or be instantly killed. The alignment of a crown is determined as follows. Only 6% chance of evil, 7 to 14 it's good, 15 to 20 neutrality. So you just roll a 20-sider, but it's pretty even. While being worn, the crown raises its wearer's level of experience by 1 and confers the following additional powers or effects. Each seems to have 2 from the first table, 1 from the second, and 1 from the third. It goes on. Should the character wearing a crown touch an orb of might or a scepter of might of a different ethos, he or she takes damage and must save as noted above. And if the saving throw is successful, 1 malevolent power from table 4 will affect him or her. However, if the orb or scepter is of the same ethos, the following extra powers and effects are conferred upon the possessor. Second item of the set gives a couple extra, 1 of each extra first and second table powers. So 1 good, 1 bad. And if the third item of the set is added in, yet another first and second, but also a 4th, 5th, and 6th. So you really have all 3. If you really have all 3 items, you pretty much have a complete, it's like you're getting 3 sections of 3 different artifacts. TBC says, thanks for the answer, very helpful. Oh, glad to help. Always glad to help if I can. It's going to be different for everybody, of course, but you have to decide up front and, let the players know kind of what the level of the campaign is so that they have a feel for how much they should know. You don't want them feeling at sea all the time, but you do want them curious and to know that there's more out there. Note, each of these items is so similar in appearance to the other that examination will reveal no difference. That is, each orb from good, evil, and neutrality looks very similar, and each scepter will look very similar to one another, and the crowns as well. The detection magic will not reveal their ethic alignment. Each crown is a slender diadem of gold set with 3 precious stones of great size, so as to bring 50,000 or more gold pieces if openly sold. So It says if touched earlier in this description. If people are selling and buying this thing, I guess you could have it in a box so they don't have to directly touch it. But I would suggest that it's probably best for an item like this to have to be worn to confer that damage and require the saving throw. This way people can handle it, touch it, examine it, check it for value. Just makes sense that if it's going to be bought and sold that it can't be so quick to instantly kill people all the time. Can you imagine two people in a room finally touch it? Both die instantly, losing their saving throw or just the hit points killing them. And then it just sits in that room, in a small back room of a tavern, until somebody comes in to clean up the room, and then they die because they touch it. Pick it up. Oh, what's this here? It's very valuable. Of course they're going to touch it. TBC asks, do your players stick to their alignment? It's tough for me to even understand, even though I've read a lot about it. You know, alignment's a tricky conversation that I rarely have with players other than to say that I don't allow evil in my campaigns from players. If they're just going to be evil, then by the end of whatever session we're in where they've been evil, they forfeit their character. Their character becomes an NPC. I run evil as a DM. Players don't. Players are good. They're team members. I don't expect, I'm not, I'm not running I'm not running a game where I've got 5 or 6 loners separating from each other. This is the games I run. I expect the players to be considered part of a team, to play nice with one another. I don't enjoy player versus player. And all of that is to preface saying, as far as alignment is concerned, I don't allow evil. And alignment is for me a gauge based on what player characters have done in the setting. It's not a straitjacket to force players to act in a certain way. You can act any way you want. It's just helps me keep track of your general demeanor so that when people are around you, they have a chance to, other people have a chance to gauge the way you're acting, your attitude, your general nature. Because you're not playing these characters 24/7. And there are people who are around you. You're staying at an inn. You're there for 8 hours, 5 minutes in game time. But the people of the inn have been observing you and interacting with you for 8 hours or whatever. So whatever alignment I've assigned based on your attitude and activities, that's what you project generally, unless you're actively trying to disguise that and you're good at that. Let's see. Sarah says, I don't know, man. If I walked into a room with bodies around an item in a world they have been known to kill before, I would be cautious. At least I'd like to think so. Absolutely. Yeah, what is this? What is this crown laying in the middle of the room? It's obviously valuable. It's got 3 large gems in it. The sound cut off when you touch your headphone. Actually, the sound cut off before I touched them. I touched them to turn it back on. But thank you. In any event, that's my take on alignment. It's not a straitjacket. It is a guide for me to determine how people will treat you in lieu of some specific way in which you're attempting to project yourself as a player character to other non-player characters. What player characters do with and interact with one another is the business of the player characters. I don't restrict that in any way. Let's read one more. The crystal of the Ebon Flame. The origin of this artifact is entirely unknown, as its exact whereabouts, as is its exact whereabouts. It is a beautifully formed diamond-hard mineral the size of a hand. When it is touched, the crystal sends forth rays of light, and a black flame seems to leap and dance in the heart of the jewel. All creatures within 30 feet must save versus magic or be charmed as if by a fire charm spell. The possessor of the crystal may draw upon its powers by gazing at the ebon flame at its center. These powers and effects are, and it's got quite a few, 4 from the first, 2 from the second, 1 each from the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth tables. So the vagarity of this explanation of its origins and locations leaves this one really wide open. It's got a cool name. It's got a general look to it. So you can assume for your campaign setting certain things from that. But you also can impress upon it any sort of origins or explanation that you desire. Let's zip over here. Ebon Flame, let's zip up to here. So we haven't gotten very far on this. Next show might be a pretty long one. We're going to stop here. We'll be moving through them a lot faster next week. We'll start with the Cup and Talisman of Al-Akbar, and we'll go through them and knock them out for part 6. Thank you very much to everybody who's jumped in today. It's much appreciated. I do want to say thanks to Sarah for chiming in on the chat, and thanks to TBC_X who just joined us today for the first time. It's very much appreciated. I will remind everybody, this has been a hard look at the Dungeon Masters Guide section on Artifacts and Relics, Part 5. Next week, Part 6. The week after that will be the last show of the year. We'll look at the non-player character records sheets from first edition AD&D TSR. I think it was 79, 81 that they were printed. Yeah, it says right on the cover. Originally printed in 79 and then reprinted in 81. I will say the winter hiatus, last show of the year, 2021, is Monday, December 20th, always at 10 a.m. The first show of 2022 will be Monday, January 17th. Thanks again for another great year, of course. This show streams live on Twitch each Monday at 10 a.m. Central and is then archived to YouTube. If you're here on Twitch, then by all means, please do follow the channel and chime in on the stream chat with Sarah and TBC, for instance, today. Make yourself known. It's always appreciated if you jump in. If you're catching up with this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so you can get updates whenever a new video is uploaded. Also, please do click the thumbs up if you've enjoyed a show that you've listened to, and feel free to chime in on the comments over there if you have any questions or you want to add into the theme in some way. It is very much appreciated. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.